Good morning to you all. It's a pleasure coming your way once again. And today I would want us to take a look at another aspect of our lesson. We will be looking at TPACK today. I would want to quickly share my screen and then let you have a feel of what TPACK is all about. When we come across the term TPACK, what should come to our mind naturally is the need to integrate technology into the classroom. And I believe you will agree with me that the dispensation in which we find ourselves, we ought to be able to adjust ourselves and be able to integrate technology into our classroom. And this is what calls to mind the terminology TPACK. It's my expectation that once we are able to have a thorough discussion of this aspect of our lesson, we should be able to describe the situation of teaching in Ghana as far as ICT is concerned. I'm also hoping that at the end of our lesson, we will be able to explain what TPACK means. And then we should be able to develop a lesson plan using TPACK. It's a fact that we cannot continue to teach today the way we used to teach yesterday. As was rightly put by John Dewey, he said that if we teach today as we thought yesterday, then we rob our children of tomorrow. Those are the words of John Dewey. So then, the question that will come to mind is, how do we teach in Ghana? Predominantly, how do we see teaching taking place around us? What I will call traditional methods of teaching around us is one that is teacher-centered. It's an approach that we see the teacher dominating in the act of delivery as far as teaching and learning is concerned. You see that the situation is such that the teacher does all the talking, and students who are quote and unquote termed good students are expected to do listening whilst the teacher is doing the talking. And then while the talking is going on, the students, quote and unquote, good students, are expected to write lots of notes. Then the teacher questions, and the questions are usually designed to recall facts that students are expected to have accumulated. There is a heavy emphasis on assessment so that everything that the teacher is teaching and what the student is expected to learn is geared towards preparing the student for an examination, not necessarily for acquiring set skills. Hence, we observe that, or we would have observed that students do not take active part. There is hardly a hands-on activity as far as teaching and learning is concerned. These that I have described are things that usually occur in the traditional classroom. What can ICT provide us? Research has shown us that with a non-linguistic activity such as graphic organizers, images, mental images, movements, etc., we are able to help students to understand concepts. In other words, when we are able to support various concepts with graphic images, we are able to support our concepts with videos. It helps to demystify or break down concepts such that students are able to have a clearer understanding. Secondly, there's also research that concludes that when there is a cooperative group work, it leads to learning gains and higher student achievements. This interaction leads to more learning and great content retention. So that in the classroom where students are put together so that they cooperate in small groups, it helps to gain more as far as learning is concerned. And this shows in their achievements. This is because then it leads to a great retention as far as content retention is concerned. What is the situation of ICT in Ghana? Even though all over the world, studies have shown that there is great potential for ICT to enhance teaching and learning, we must face facts that there is very little or no ICT integration of content in our schools. Many of the areas where our colleges and schools are located, many of the locations have very little ICT integration. At best, we have a lot of standalone courses. And when I say standalone courses, I mean we have situations where students are learning ICT as a course, but not so much emphasis is laid on how to use ICT in all other aspects of our teaching and learning. So students may be found in classrooms learning how to type, or maybe learning the various components of Office, Word, Excel, etc. But how to apply these in the act of teaching, actually, very little is done as far as these are concerned. I would want to ask, have you ever used any ICT tool in teaching in your class before? I would want you to write this down, any ICT tools that you have ever used before and how you used it in your classroom as a teacher. I'd want you to write it down and then share what you have written with your partner so that at the end of this presentation, when we have the chance to have our discussions on the dashboard, you will share with us what you have written. So please do that writing now. Now, the question I would want to ask, or the question on the minds of many of us, is why do we need to integrate technology in the classroom? Is there a need for us to integrate technology in the classroom? This question has come to play so much because of the dispensation that we find ourselves in. We are in an age that is termed the information age. There is a great paradigm shift. Technology integration necessarily alters the traditional paradigm, the paradigm of the teacher providing the wisdom and the student absorbing knowledge. This paradigm has shifted. The knowledge needed for tomorrow's jobs many at times even change before today's students enter the job market. So that many of the things that we may learn yesterday and today, by the time we are entering into the job market, we would realize that the skill sets may have changed. Students today must learn to search and discover knowledge for themselves. They must actively be able to communicate with others and solve problems so that they can become productive, lifelong members of our society. This calls to mind the need for us to have what we will call 21st century skills for students. For the 21st century skills for students, I have outlined a few, but I would love for you to also look out for some other. skills that are expected of the 21st century student. Few that I would like to mention are the need to cooperate, the need to be able to communicate. The 21st century student needs ICT literacy. The 21st century student needs skills in social and what we'll call social or cultural skills. He should be creative. He should be able to do critical thinking. He ought to be somebody who is in a position to solve problems. The 21st century student should be someone who is willing to learn, unlearn in order to learn, so to say. In other words, he should be someone who is willing to let go of what he has learned before earlier on in order to learn a new thing. These are just a few of the skills that I would want to mention. But as you can see, there are a few more skills that is expected of the 21st century student. There is therefore the need for a student to change his roles. The roles are changing in the sense that we should allow technology to change our teaching paradigm. When technology is effectively integrated into subject areas, teachers grow into the roles of being an advisor. When technology is effectively integrated into the subject areas the teachers are teaching, the teacher becomes more of a coach, a facilitator, not the one with all the wisdom that he is about to pour out onto the student. The teacher is therefore seen more as a content expert. And this is where the concept of TPACK comes into mind. TPACK is simply put technological, pedagogical content knowledge. Technological, pedagogical content knowledge. And it refers to the knowledge that emerges from an understanding of an interaction of content, pedagogy, and teaching knowledge or technology knowledge. This was coined by Mishra and Kwela. One would ask, why TPACK? Learning how to use technology is different from knowing what to do with technology for teaching. That is one reason why we need to understand TPACK. A framework to understand the teacher's knowledge is required for effective technology integration. TPACK allows educators to bring the real-world applications to the classroom. It provides an opportunity for students to see and hear video clips, to see sounds and watch video clips, and then hear audio, which can help to teach or reinforce their concepts. It allows students to investigate, connect to, and make discoveries previously which may be unknown to the student. In this diagram which I am showing now, we have our contexts. The context is, in the classroom, it is important that the teacher considers the concepts to be facilitated. What is the best way to present these concepts to the students? And what is the technology that will enhance the lesson? These are all stages that should be taken into context. The ideal situation is what we call the TPACK framework, where the technological knowledge of the tutor, the content knowledge of the tutor, and the pedagogical knowledge of the teacher are fused together such that not only is the teacher someone who has or who is well versed in the content, but he is also someone who knows the best approach to use in order to deliver that content. And whilst knowing the content and then also being well versed in the approach to use in the delivery, he is also someone who ought to know the best technology to use as far as the delivery of the lesson is concerned. And this fusion is what we are referring to as TPACK. We can break the various intersections into different descriptions. And just as you can see on the screen, we have the content knowledge, we have the technological knowledge, and we have the pedagogical knowledge. Now, I would want us to try and explain in our own words. So this one, I would want for you to also write it down in your own words. What comes to mind when you hear PCK or pedagogical content knowledge? What comes to mind when you have TCK, that is technological content knowledge? And then what comes to mind when we come to TPK, technological pedagogical knowledge? I have the descriptions here written, but because I have asked you to write it down, I'll share this with you again after the presentation. To identify TPACK elements in our lesson plans, I would want us in your various groups of study put together a lesson plan and see if in your lesson plan you can identify some of the components of TPACK, as in technological knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, content knowledge, technological pedagogical knowledge, technological content knowledge, pedagogical content knowledge, and then finally, the TPACK itself. Now, when you take your lesson plan, see if you can identify these components in it. And then we would have the discussion of it all on the platform. And since this is supposed to be another short lesson, I would want to pause over here. And then after we have had the discussions on the dashboard, we will continue from where we are leaving it. And so, thank you very much for your attention, and I'll meet you at the flip side. Thank you.